Spider-Man director's latest sci-fi masterpiece is finally here. Based on the movie version of The Alien starring David Bowie, the alien Thomas, in order to survive from the distant planet Andia to Earth, he lands in a desert in the American West. In order to adapt to life on Earth, he shed his scales, he disguised himself as a human, he became an alien immigrant on Earth. He lived on his home planet, where water was desperately scarce. With a desperate need for water, he quickly found a house. He inserted a water pipe into his mouth and frantically hydrated himself. But the owner of the house found him, thinking he was a drunken pervert, directly took out a shotgun to drive him away. Fortunately, the police arrived in time, dissuaded the homeowner who wanted to blow his head off. Seeing the hose in his mouth, the police were very shocked. Just as the police were about to slowly remove the pipe, more stunned everyone. The police pumped for 3 minutes before they took out the pipe inserted into his stomach. However, when the police asked him to kneel down with his head in his hands, but he only repeated human language, the police were so furious that they tasered him and knocked him out. When he was reawakened, he was in the police station. He quickly learns everything around him. He learns the language from human mouths and TVs. In just a few minutes he learned basic English words. As the officer questioned him, he kept repeating that he had completed his mission and gave a strange coordinate. But just after the officer took a phone call, he immediately mastered the English language. When the officer asked him where he was from, he said he was from the planet Andia. The officer thought he was crazy. He told him not to tell anyone your secret, otherwise, he would be locked up in a mental hospital and would not be able to complete his mission. Then he asked if there was anyone who could come and pick him up. He gave the name of Justin Falls. At this time, the poor Justin was still working a high-risk temp job to survive, unaware of the dramatic changes that were about to happen to her. When she begged her boss for more work, she is molested by her boss. As she's on her way to a breakdown, she suddenly receives a call from the police. When she arrived at the police station, the officer told her to pick up her friend, but the man in front of her was a complete stranger. Justin refused to post bail. He thought it was just a misunderstanding, but he recites Justin's thesis from college and said she hadn't failed in the first place. He would finish the job with her, but Justin thinks he's a science stalker. He said he could help Justin with her research, and then he gave us the strange coordinates. But Justin warned him that if he came near her and her family again, he would kill him for sure. The confused officer had to release him, but he took the police department's cell phone. Then he followed the directions to a pawn shop. The man suddenly spit out a golden ring from his mouth. Then a large number of gold rings gushed out of his mouth. He came inside the pawn shop, pulled out a large amount of gold from his pocket. He looked directly at the boss's wife opposite. He said the exact gram weight of the gold, but the lady insisted on checking it out. Suddenly he looked at the electronics in the store, disassembled them one by one, quickly assembled them together. A simple signal receiving device is complete. Seeing his silly look, the boss lady tried to trick him. He ended up with a simple and brutal move. He solved the boss's wife's trick. He took the assembled receiver. He kept looking for the coordinates, but a large amount of money floated out of his pocket. The money flying in the sky caused the passerby to break, but he was still concentrating on the sky. At that moment, an alien ship suddenly appeared in the sky. It was as if he himself had returned to his home planet. While he was immersed in the memories of his home planet, with the collapse of the home planet ship, he was also hit by a fierce punch. The man picked up the gun and shot at the air. The gangster and Justin are dumbfounded. Justin was so scared that he begged for mercy and said he had a daughter. He drops the gun in his hand. He rushed to pick up his signal receiver. Justin just reminded him that his finger was broken, but he broke it right back. Justin was stunned by this operation. He asked Justin if he wanted money too, but Justin said he was just passing by. He kept mumbling that he was running out of time. He asked Justin to take him to the coordinates, but Justin didn't want to care about this crazy guy anymore. In the end, for pity's sake, Justin could only agree to take him there. But in the middle of a break, he wrote a code that was out of his time. Justin began to wonder who he really was. He said that Thomas Newton had sent him here, but Justin found out that this man, he was the founder of a giant technology company 40 years ago. They finally arrived at the place, but there was nothing here. He walked straight into the desert. The weather began to change dramatically. Sensing that something was wrong, Justin had to turn back to save him, but he was already in the center of the storm. Justin had to go back to the car to escape the storm. He looked up and stared into the eye of the storm, which was spinning rapidly. Suddenly, a voice in his head made him open his eyes. At that moment, he was in another dimension, but the mysterious old man here said he could never go back to his home planet, but he would make him a god of Earth. Years later he became the god of technology on Earth, and realized the technological achievements that changed the world.